You're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Dhaka under tight security ahead of tribunal verdict against ex-Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Her party Awami League's call for a complete shutdown continues on the second consecutive day. US President Trump hints at possible talks with Venezuelan counterpart after US designates a cartel that it claims Maduro runs as a foreign terrorist organization. After House Speaker bats for release of Epstein files, Trump reverses his earlier stand on Epstein files, urges Republicans in Congress to vote for release of files. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to meet a Russian counterpart. Sergei Lavrov in Moscow leads Indian delegation at SCO meeting. And Italy's Yannick Sinner retains his ATP finals title, beats world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz. Well, on to the details now. The International Crimes Tribunal, Bangladesh's domestic war crimes court, is set to deliver a verdict in absentia against ousted former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on charges of crimes against humanity over the violent crackdown on student protest in mid-2024. Security has been tightened outside the court ahead of the verdict. Hasina, former Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal and ex-police chief Chaudhry Abdullah Al Mamun were charged under the International Crimes Tribunal Act. However, her party, Bangladesh Awami League, has rejected reforms promised by the interim government and has called to rise against ongoing anarchy. Now, ahead of the verdict, the Awami League announced a nationwide shutdown. Party also alleged Yunus-led government of using false cases, violent attacks, arrest and repression to achieve its political goal. And DD India correspondent Naval Singh Parmar joins us from Dhaka on the phone line. Well, Naval Singh, what is the current law and order and security situation in Dhaka and around the International Crimes Tribunal ahead of the verdict?
The tribunal office premises and the overall Dhaka city and some other neighboring district of the Dhaka. Security is very tight, and some of the district, particularly the home district of Sheikh Hasina, Gopalganj, Madaripur and Faridpur, the law enforcement deployment is very heavy and security has been tightened. Since the last week, there are many incidents of arson as well as the gunfire and crude bomb explosion. So law and order situation is very critical here in Dhaka. People are also worried what will happen, and it depends on today's verdict. It may have a major impact on Bangladesh political scenario ahead.
All right. Also, Naval Singh, how is the political atmosphere in Bangladesh right now, especially with the Awami League rejecting the interim government's reforms and calling for people to rise against anarchy?
Actually, day by day, interim government is losing people's face. Many people are fed up with the policy and policy indecisiveness of the interim government. At the same time, political party, apart from Awami League, Bangladesh Nationalist Party and Jamaat-e-Islami are also accusing the interim government for the bipartisan role they are playing. Jamaat-Islami is also accusing the interim government. At the same time, BNP also on many occasions has accused the interim government for favoring their adversaries, political adversaries in Bangladesh. So political situation is also very tense, and there is a logjam between the Awami League as well as the BNP and the Jamaat-e-Islami regarding some of the issues, particularly the referendum and the PR proportional representation system and dates of the referendum as well as the next general election in Bangladesh.
All right. Also, if you talk about the mood among the public, how is it, particularly the students and the civil society groups who led the 2024 protest as the country awaits the tribunal's verdict?
Actually, in almost 1.5 year, the situation very changed. Particularly the students and the activists who led the protest, they are now almost alienated with the mainstream politics, and the students who have from the political party like National Citizen Party, they are also losing their credibility because there are many accusations against them regarding corruption and favoritism. So student and student-led political party, they are not commanding a good report in the common people. So interim government as well as student political party, they lost their support from people in last 1.5 years.
All right. Also, can you walk us through the key points from the trial, including the major evidence presented till now, and what is the possible outcome of the Monday's verdict, which could mean for Bangladesh politically and socially?
Actually, it is very difficult to predict regarding the outcome of the verdict, but the prosecution has asked for the maximum possible punishment, and in Bangladesh, capital punishment is also there. So maybe life imprisonment or anything else, but it is difficult to predict what will be the outcome of the verdict. And it is very sure that it will have a major impact, political impact on Bangladesh political system in coming days.
All right. The most importantly, Namal Singh, as former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is in exile right now, how will the tribunal judgment be enforced?
Yes, it is again a very tough question for me how they will enforce the judgment of the tribunal. But there may be appeal or in higher court and Supreme Court. That is also option available, maybe available with the Sheikh Hasina. And on many occasions, interim government has written for the extradition of Sheikh Hasina. They may pursue extradition process with the Sheikh Hasina's and in coming days, what will be the outcome? It is difficult to predict.
All right. Thank you so much for all those details, and we'll keep taking more updates from you as the verdict comes. And moving on, US President Donald Trump has hinted at holding discussions with the Venezuelan leader, Nicolas Maduro, who has been in the crosshairs of a US military buildup in the Caribbean. Now, Trump offered no further details about the possibility of talks, though he suggested he would keep up the pressure on the Maduro regime. Now, the Venezuelan Communications Ministry, however, did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
It allows us to do that, but we haven't said we're going to do that. And we may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk. Venezuela would like to talk. What does it mean? You tell me. I don't know. You want to talk to them? I talk to anybody. I talk to you, right? I talk to anybody. We'll see what happens.
Well, the news of possible discussions between the US and Venezuela came as Washington formally designated what it says is a cartel run by Venezuelan president as a foreign terrorist organization. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the decision on Sunday, saying the Cartel de los Soles works alongside other designated FTOs and is responsible for widespread violence and drug trafficking across the region. Also, U.S. officials say the designation comes amid a major American military buildup in the Caribbean, including the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group as part of Operation Southern Spare. Now, Washington says the buildup is needed to counter smuggling networks. Well, Caracas claims the move is part of a plot to topple President Maduro, an accusation U.S. officials reject. Rubio reiterated long-standing U.S. allegations that Maduro and senior Venezuelan officials lead the organization, asserting they have corrupted key state institutions. Also, since the U.S. launched its anti-trafficking campaign in September, at least 83 people accused of moving drugs in international waters have been killed, including 3 in a strike in the Eastern Pacific. Well, the U.S. has not provided evidence that those targeted were traffickers, and experts warn the killings may constitute extrajudicial actions. Meanwhile, Pentagon announced another attack on an alleged drug trafficking vessel in the Eastern Pacific. The U.S. Southern Command has described the vessel as being operated by a designated terrorist organization and was transporting narcotics along a well-known trafficking route in international waters. Now, 3 men, characterized by officials as narco-terrorists, were killed in the operation, the 21st known attack on drug boats by the U.S. military since early September was carried out under an order attributed to U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. And for more on this, we have Akshay Dongre joining us live. Well, Akshay, how does the U.S. Simultaneously hinting at talks with Maduro while designating his alleged cartel as a foreign terrorist organization shape the credibility and intentions of Washington's broader strategy towards Venezuela?
Well, it seems that the strategy remains the same, Lipakshi, but, as far as the way they are presenting it is in a way slightly different. It's a carrot and stick, approach this time around that the Trump administration is using. And on one side, they are saying that they are willing to talk, but on the other hand, they are keeping the pressure up by increasing the military buildup in the area, by targeting the vessels that they are claiming are of cartels, are of, drug traffickers that are sending a large amount of drugs into the onto the U.S. soil. So while they are looking for an off-ramp from the kind of hostilities that there are, and they have prevailed, but it seems that they also want to assure their domestic audience that the government is doing all that they can to ensure this stoppage of drugs flowing into the country. However, also what we are looking at is a new approach, in a way that talks are being directly talked about by Donald Trump, the U.S. president, which means that despite all of the efforts that have been made to either, talk to the audience talk to his domestic audience about the kind of drug menace that is in the country, and the cause has been, according to U.S. President, Venezuela and the Maduro regime for a long time, in fact a major one. But they also have realized that the kind of tactics that were used earlier are not working out.
All right, actually, of course, stopping the drugs is an aim. But to what extent is the U.S. military build-up in the Caribbean driven by the genuine counter-narcotics objectives versus the geopolitical aims, such as pressurizing or destabilizing the Maduro government?
Well, it has always been there, Lipak. It's just not one cause that leads to a country like US to take such a drastic action, as
Right.
to targeting the vessels of other sovereign nation. So it's not just a drug issue, is what it appears prima facie, but it is also the geopolitics of the region. Venezuela and the Maduro regime has been consistently against the US government. It's not just the Trump administration, but even in the earlier administration, there has been a lot of friction, there has been a lot of antagonism towards each other, and that perhaps is the reason why, as soon as Donald Trump came, he picked up one issue of drug trafficking and launched out an all-out operation against the vessels of Venezuela, claiming that those are drug traffickers and are providing no proof. So, if they had to take action against drug traffickers, there are a lot of other countries from where drugs have been flowing into the US. Many of the countries that the US took over, countries like Afghanistan, countries in the West Asian region, they also have been accused of growing large harvests of drugs. However, no similar action has been taken when we don't have any precedents of the kind of action that is being taken against Venezuela. So it's not just drugs, what it appears, it's much larger than that.
Also, with U.S. targeting of alleged narcotics vessel in the Caribbean countries, what reactions can we pick up from the various stakeholders?
Well, obviously, Venezuela is claiming that these are not drug traffickers, and the kind of action that has been taken in international waters is illegal, clearly. Whereas the Trump administration has vocally said that these are people who are sending drugs and killing the U.S. citizens, and that is to it. As of now, these are the two main sides that have been, claiming and counterclaiming each other's accusations, but as of now, no concrete evidence has been provided by either side.
All right, Akshay, thank you so much for all those details. And still to come on DD India Newshour. UN Security Council to vote on Trump-Gaza plan. Zelenskyy visits Paris seeking new defense deal with France amid fresh Ukrainian energy scandal.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, US President Donald Trump doubled down on his attacks against Republican lawmaker Marjorie Taylor Greene on Sunday, dismissing her claim that his criticism was endangering her and saying he did not believe anyone was targeting her. Now, Trump derided Republican lawmaker Marjorie Taylor as a traitor in his Truth Social post. Trump also said that Greene trying to portray herself as a victim and that she was the cause of all of her own problems. Also, Greene, a U.S. House of Representative member from Georgia who was long known as a Trump loyalist, said on Saturday she has been contacted by private security firms warning about her safety and that harsh attacks against her have previously resulted in death threats. Greene said earlier that Trump's online criticism had unleashed a surge of threats directed at her. She attributed her split with the president to her support for releasing records related to the late financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson said on Sunday he believed the approaching vote on releasing Justice Department files related to Epstein should help put to rest allegations that Trump had any connection to the late sex offender's abuse and trafficking of underage girls. And moving on, Iranian authorities on Sunday said the United States and its allies continue to pursue a forceful approach towards the country's nuclear program, leaving negotiations unlikely for now. The Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, speaking at the Tehran Dialogue Forum in the capital, said Washington has shown no readiness for fair or equal talks. He accused the U.S. administration of maintaining the maximalist demands first pushed under President Donald Trump. He added that communication channels with the International Atomic Energy Agency remain open. He reiterated that Iran's right to the peaceful use of nuclear energy is non-negotiable.
The current approach of the US government does not in any way indicate a readiness for equal and fair negotiations to achieve mutual benefits. What we have witnessed from the Americans so far has in fact been an attempt to dictate their own demands, completely maximal and excessive demands. In the face of such demands, we do not see an opportunity for dialogue. Otherwise, we were ready for dialogue, and we always are, and we will continue to be. But we will never participate in negotiations that are intended to dictate.
Well, following Israel's attack on Iran in June, which was joined by U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, attempts at renewing dialogue on Tehran's nuclear program have failed. Also, the United States, its European allies and Israel accused Tehran of using its nuclear program as a veil for efforts to develop the capability to produce weapons. Iran says its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes only. Moving on, the UN Security Council is due to vote on Monday on a resolution endorsing US President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. Now, last week, the Americans officially launched negotiations within the 15-member Security Council on a text that would follow up on a ceasefire in the two-year conflict between Israel and Hamas and endorse Trump's plan. A draft of the resolution welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace, a transitional governing body for Gaza that Trump would theoretically chair, with a mandate running until the end of 2027. It would authorize member states to form a temporary international stabilization force that would work with Israel and Egypt and newly trained Palestinian police to help secure border areas and demilitarize the Gaza Strip. Now, the United States and several Arab and Muslim majority nations, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, called the UN Security Council to quickly adopt the resolution. And U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Sunday a rare earths deal with China will hopefully be done by Thanksgiving. His remarks follow a framework deal announced last month under which Washington agreed not to impose full 100% tariffs on Chinese imports, while Beijing committed to delaying an export licensing regime on critical rare earth minerals and magnets. Now, Bessent said he was confident China will honor agreements on rare earths. Also, Bessent denied a recent report in the Wall Street Journal suggesting that Chinese authorities planned to limit rare earths access for U.S. firms with military connections. And Germany's finance minister Lars Klingbeil is visiting Beijing on Monday, becoming the first cabinet minister from the new coalition to visit China. Now, the visit comes as Berlin faces a widening trade gap and pressure to show control over its China policy. Also, Klingbeil will meet Vice Premier He Lifeng as part of the German-Chinese financial dialogue, discussing trade issues including Chinese limits on rare earths. Also, the visit is politically significant at home, showing Berlin can gain a hearing in Beijing amid supply chain disruptions, falling exports, rising imports, and a record trade deficit of 87 billion euros, prompting calls for stronger China policy. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in Paris in a new bid to secure weaponry against Russian missile and drone attacks. Zelenskyy's visit is part of a brief tour of his Western allies that saw him seal an energy deal with Greece on Sunday and will include a visit to Spain on Tuesday. Now, the Ukrainian leader has said that a major deal with France will be announced soon, but it was not known if that would be finalized in his talks with President Emmanuel Macron. Zelenskyy and Macron will then go on to a forum at the Elysee Palace on joint production of drones. Zelenskyy's ninth visit to France since the conflict in 2022 comes as his government battles a new corruption scandal, this time involving its energy firms. Well, Britain will drastically reduce protections for refugees and end automatic benefits for asylum seekers, the Labour government announced late on Saturday, under new plans aimed at slashing irregular immigration and countering the hard right. The measures, modelled on Denmark's strict asylum system, were announced as Prime Minister Keir Starmer comes under pressure from surging popularity for the anti-immigrant Reform UK party.
Britain is set to launch the largest overhaul of policy on asylum seekers in modern times, drawing inspiration from Denmark's approach, one of the toughest in Europe and widely criticised by rights groups. The Labour government has been hardening its immigration policies, particularly on illegal small boat crossings from France, as it seeks to stem the surging popularity of the populist Reform UK party, which has driven the immigration agenda and forced Labour to adopt a tougher line. This country has a proud tradition of welcoming those fleeing danger, but our generosity is drawing illegal migrants across the channel. The pace and scale of migration is placing immense pressure on communities. I will end UK's golden ticket for asylum seekers. As part of the changes, the statutory duty to provide support to certain asylum seekers, including housing and weekly allowances, will be revoked. Taxpayer-funded support will be prioritised for those contributing to the UK economy. length of the refugee status would be cut to 30 months. Presently, those given refugee status have it for 5 years, after which they can apply for indefinite leave to remain in the UK and eventually apply for citizenship. Measures will apply on those asylum seekers who can work but choose not to, and to those who break the law. The Interior Ministry added that these measures will be regularly reviewed and refugees will be forced to return to their home countries once they are deemed safe. Shabana Mahmood is expected to provide further details on Monday about the measures, which the Home Office says are designed to make Britain less attractive to illegal migrants and make it easier to remove them. More than 100 British charities wrote to Mahmood, urging her to end the scapegoating of migrants and performative policies that only cause harm, saying such steps are fueling racism and violence. Polls suggest immigration has overtaken the UK economy as voters' top concern. Asylum claims in Britain are at a record high, with some 111,000 applications made in the year to June 2025, according to official figures. And some 109,343 people claimed asylum in the UK in the year ending March 2025, a 17% rise on the previous year and 6% above the 2002 peak. Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
And moving on, a tragic accident occurred at a copper mine in southeastern Congo on Saturday. Around 32 people died when a bridge collapsed at a semi-industrial copper mine in southeastern Congo. Now, the country's artisanal mining agency reported that the incident occurred at the Kalando mine in Lualaba province. Congo's Artisanal and Small-Scale Mining Support and Guidance Service said the collapse happened when panic erupted, allegedly after soldiers stationed at the site fired shots. In the chaos, miners fell and were crushed as they scrambled over one another. The Initiative for the Protection of Human Rights is urging an independent inquiry into the role of the military, pointing to reports of confrontations between troops and the miners. And Chile's presidential election will go to a runoff vote in December between a Communist Party and a far-right candidate after the first round on Sunday produced no outright winner. Now, the Communist Party's Jonet Zijara from the governing coalition narrowly won the first round, followed closely by far-right candidate Jose Antonio Cast. Jara vowed to strengthen immigration controls and pursue organized crime by lifting banking secrecy laws. Now, Jara, who would become Chile's first Communist Party presidential finalist, promised to bolster police forces and implement preventive measures. Also, Chilean President Gabriel Boric congratulated both Jonet Jara and Jose Antonio Cast after the two candidates advanced to the runoff. The results set up a December 14th runoff between the two political extremes. 8 candidates competed in Sunday's first round, though none achieved the 50% plus one vote needed to win outright. Now, the campaign was dominated by voter concerns over crime and immigration, issues that have reshaped Chile's political landscape. And Ecuadorian voters roundly rejected the return of US military bases to the country in a referendum on Sunday, a major political blow to Trump-friendly President Daniel Noboa. Now, with 3/4 of the vote counted, about 60% of Ecuadorians had voted no to lifting a long-standing ban on foreign bases. The rejection effectively blocks the US military from returning to an airbase at Manta on the Pacific coast. Nearly 14 million Ecuadorians were eligible to cast ballots on whether to overturn a 2008 ban on foreign military bases in the country. Also, the vote came against the backdrop of US military airstrikes against alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean and Pacific, a divisive policy that Noboa has backed. Voters were also asked 3 other questions: whether they should end public funding for political parties, reduce the number of lawmakers, and create an elected body that would draft a new constitution. Also, the early count showed those proposals failing by a large margin too. Noboa said, "We respect the will of the Ecuadorian people." After results showed a solid majority of voters had rejected his proposals. And moving on, at least 5 schools in New Zealand were closed on Monday after asbestos was found in widely used children's play sand products, authorities said. Now, recalls have been issued for several colourful play sand products after lab tests detected asbestos. Over 120 schools have contacted the government fearing they use the recalled sand mainly sold at Kamat. Asbestos is banned in New Zealand and can cause cancer if its fibres are inhaled or ingested. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The passage of storm Claudia has left 3 people dead in Portugal and caused major damage in parts of the UK. The storm, named by the Spanish Meteorological Service, hit the UK on Friday and caused devastating floods in Monmouthshire, South Wales, where a major incident was declared. A volcano on Japan's major western island of Kyushu erupted multiple times on Sunday, sending a plume of smoke and ash as high as 4.4 kilometers into the air and causing dozens of flight cancellations. The volcano, which is called Sakurajima and is located on the southern tip of Kyushu near the city of Kagoshima. In Cuba, thousands of runners participated in the annual Maravana Marathon in Havana on Sunday, a route that passes through some of the most iconic sites in the Cuban capital, such as the Malecon Seafront Promenade and Revolution Square. Some 2,900 runners participated in the marathon, including about 275 runners from countries such as Germany, the United States, Mexico, Colombia and Spain. The event is considered Cuba's most important marathon and its largest sporting event. And still to come in India Newshour. Assam to bring home 16th century Vrindavani Vastra as Chief Minister Sarma signs landmark MOU with British Museum. Annual pilgrimage season at Sabarimala begins with Vristikam. And treat for the cine lovers, restored 4K Sholay with original ending to hit theatres on December 12th for the 50th anniversary.
Welcome to DD India, where a billion voices unite, connecting viewers to the stories that matter. India is not just another news channel. It's the international channel that puts the spotlight on the global south, bringing you stories from the heart of emerging economies, dynamic cultures, and transformative voices. As the international news channel of India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati, DD India delivers high-quality content from every corner of the globe, focusing on the stories that shape our future. We don't just report news. We connect you to India's voice in the global narrative, from current affairs to culture, from economic growth to sustainable development, and the ever-evolving world order. DD India gives you a comprehensive view of the world around us. Stay connected, stay informed, and embrace the stories that shape our lives. DD India, India's voice to the world.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Dhaka under tight security as tribunal to deliver verdict against ex-Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in a short while. US President Trump hints at possible talks with Venezuelan counterpart after US designates a cartel that it claims Maduro runs as a foreign terrorist organization. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to meet Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow, leads Indian delegation at SCO meeting. Italy's Yannick Sinner retains his ATP finals title, beats world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz. And moving on, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Monday that Australia would not co-host the COP31 climate summit with Turkey amid an ongoing stalemate between the two countries. During a media briefing in Melbourne, Albanese said, "We won't be co-hosting because co-hosting isn't provided for under the rules of the UNFCCC. Australia and Turkey both submitted bids in 2022 to host COP31 and neither has withdrawn, leading to an attention-sapping impasse that must be overcome at this year's COP30 meeting currently taking place in Belém, Brazil."
No, we won't be co-hosting because co-hosting isn't provided for under the rules of the UNFCCC. So that's not an option, and people are aware that that's not an option, which is why it's been ruled out.
Well, Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change Bhupendra Yadav arrived in Belém, Brazil this morning to participate in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC COP30. Now, in a social media post, Bhupendra Yadav said over the next few days, he will be participating in climate change negotiations and putting forward India's view on matters related to adaptation, climate finance and other critical issues. The minister said that he's looking forward to productive conversations. And External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will meet his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Monday to discuss a range of key bilateral and international issues. Now, Jaishankar is visiting Moscow for the two-day SCO Heads of State Council meeting beginning today. During the visit, Jaishankar is also expected to virtually inaugurate new Indian consulates in Kazan and Ekaterinburg, key emerging hubs for technology and strategic cooperation. The engagement precedes President Vladimir Putin's anticipated visit to India in early December for the annual summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And the Indian Air Force is participating in the 8th edition of the bilateral air exercise Garuda 25 in France from Sunday till the 27th of November. The Indian Air Force is conducting this exercise with the French Air and Space Force till 27th of November. Now, the exercise aims to refine tactics and procedures in a realistic operational environment. It also provides an opportunity for professional interaction, exchanges of operational knowledge and sharing of best practices between the two air forces. During the exercise, the AF's Su-30 MKI aircraft operates alongside the French multi-role fighters in complex simulated air combat scenarios, focusing on air-to-air combat, air defense and joint strike operations. And the Indian Navy is poised to script another milestone in its indigenous shipbuilding journey with the commissioning of Mahe, the first of the Mahe class anti-submarine warfare shallow water craft on the 24th of November. Built by Cochin Shipyard Limited, Kochi Mahe represents the cutting edge of India's Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative in naval ship design and construction. Compact yet powerful, the ship embodies agility, precision and endurance, qualities vital for dominating the littorals. Now, with a blend of firepower, stealth and mobility, the ship is designed to hunt submarines, conduct coastal patrols and secure India's vital maritime approaches. With over 80% indigenous content, the Mahe class showcases India's growing mastery in warship design, construction and integration. While Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal urged the plastics industry to take a decisive leap towards ensuring 100% reuse and recycling of plastics. In line with India's national sustainability goals and growing global demand for circular and environmentally responsible products. He was addressing the Export Excellence Awards ceremony and Platinum Jubilee celebrations of Security Council in Mumbai on Sunday. Piyush Goyal emphasized that India has the capacity and capability to emerge as a world leader in sustainable plastics manufacturing. He also called upon the industry to invest in advanced technologies, innovative materials and responsible production practices that reflect India's commitment to a greener and more sustainable future. The minister presented 148 Export Excellence Awards to distinguished exporters for their achievements during 2023-24 and 2024-25. And today is a big day for Assam in India as Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma is set to sign an MOU with the British Museum to bring back home the sacred Vrindavani Vastra under a loaning arrangement. The priceless silk textile woven in the 16th century is expected to return home in 2027. Sarma said for the next 2 years, a museum will be built to preserve it with utmost care. The state-of-the-art facility will also display other valuable artifacts borrowed from museums worldwide. Sarma said development and heritage continue to be a pillar of a governance agenda. And in a breaking news just coming in, a bus carrying Indian Umrah pilgrims has met with a tragic accident near Medina. In view of a tragic bus accident, a 24/7 control room has been set up in Consulate General of India, Jeddah. The bus collided with a tanker. Multiple casualties are feared in the mishap. The contact details of the helpline are as under. For more information, you can contact the toll-free number, that is 800-244-0003. I repeat, it's 800-244-0003. For more, let's go to our correspondent, Vinod Kumar. Well, Vinod, what is the latest information you have?
Look, actually, we have only very limited information at this point. All these pilgrims that were even they are from Hyderabad, and the current reported death count is around 42. These people are all from Hyderabad, and they were returning to Makkah after doing Umrah at Medina. And among this, there are reports that there are 20 women and 11 children also who have lost their life. And this has happened in yesterday night. And the accident happened after the bus collided with a tanker, and it got fired. And there are also reports that one 25-year-old has miraculously escaped from this carnage, and he is under treatment in Jeddah. And our consulate general in Jeddah has opened a toll-free number regarding this, and this has been displayed on our screen, and our viewers can, who are relatives of the people who have went for Umrah, can contact this number. And we'll be reporting as and when we'll get further details from our mission in Riyadh and our consulate from Jeddah.
All right. Thank you so much for that information, Vinod. And to tell you again, the news just coming in, a bus carrying Indian Umrah pilgrims has met with a tragic accident near Medina. In view of the tragic bus accident, a 24/7 control room has been set up in the Consulate General of India, Jeddah. The bus collided with a tanker. Multiple casualties are feared in the mishap. The contact details of the helpline are as under. You can contact the toll-free number, which is 800-244-0003. I'll say it again, 800-244-0003. And moving on, Bihar's Chief Electoral Officer Vinod Singh Gunjal handed over the list of 243 newly elected members of the State Assembly to the Governor Arif Muhammad Khan at the Raj Bhavan in Patna. The list included the names of all candidates, including 202 of NDA, 34 of Mahagathbandhan, along with lawmakers from AIMIM, Indian Inclusive Party and Bahujan Samaj Party. Now, meanwhile, the Election Commission of India has lifted the Model Code of Conduct from Bihar. 6 states and 1 union territory followed the conduct of assembly polls and by-elections. But also, the Election Commission wrote a letter to the Cabinet Secretary, Government of India and the Chief Secretaries of the respective states to inform them about the development. The Model Code of Conduct had come into force after the poll body announced the schedule for the Bihar Assembly polls and by-elections in 8 assembly constituencies spread over 6 states and 1 union territory. Assembly by-elections were held for 8 seats spread over 6 states: Rajasthan, Telangana, Odisha, Punjab, Jharkhand and Mizoram, and the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir on November 11th. And India will present a wide range of its defence and aerospace capabilities at the Dubai Air Show 2025 beginning today. An IAF contingent comprising of Surya Kiran aerobatic team and Tejas fighters will take part in the 5-day show. Indian Pavilion is also set up at the show, featuring stalls from Hull, DRDO and others. And apart from the pavilion, 19 Indian industries, including Bharat Forge, Brahmos, Tech Mahindra and HBL Engineering, will showcase their capabilities independently. In addition, 15 Indian startups will exhibit their products and solutions. Now, the global event, with participation from over 100 air forces, aims to enhance the interoperability, operational edge and foster military as well as business cooperation. And Vice President of India, C.P. Radhakrishnan, called on media organizations to play a key role in nation building and help make India a developed country by 2047. Speaking at the Ramoji Excellence Awards 2025 ceremony, Vice President Radhakrishnan said the media must maintain true objectivity in the era of misinformation and social media dominance. Later, the Vice President presented Ramoji Excellence Awards in 7 sectors, including rural development and science and technology. Earlier, speakers highlighted Ramoji Rao's contributions to Telugu language, journalism and media.
At the foundation, we are reminded the great institutions are built not merely by capital or infrastructure, but by values, the values of integrity, dedication and excellence. India today stands at the forefront of a new global era, emerging as a knowledge-driven, innovation-led nation. With the combined strength of science, technology and youth energy, India is scripting a powerful story of transformation.
And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Well, the 2-month-long Sabrimala pilgrimage officially began on Monday, the first day of the Malayalam month of Vrishchikam. The Sabrimala Ayyappa temple opened on Sunday evening ahead of the Mandalam Makaravilakku pilgrimage season, which is set to draw devotees from around the globe. The nation is remembering Lala Lajpat Rai, popularly known as Punjab Kesari, on his death anniversary today. He was a prominent leader, social reformer and writer of the Indian freedom struggle. He was also known as Punjab Kesari, and his life has become a significant chapter in the freedom struggle. A fully restored 4K version of the 1975 classic Sholay is set to release in theatres across India on December 12th, featuring the film's original ending for the first time. The re-release celebrates the 50th anniversary of the Ramesh Sippy epic. The re-release comes after renewed global attention, including a screening at the Toronto International Film Festival. And still to come on DD India Newshour. Japan's stocks slide as China issues travel warning after PM Takaichi's Taiwan remarks. Portugal seals perfect qualifying run with 9-1 rout of Armenia to secure 9th World Cup berth. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and on to some business news now. Japan's economy contracted an annualized 1.8% in the July-September quarter, the first fall in 6 quarters. Now, the government data on Monday showed that the economy contracted due to a hit to exports from US tariffs. The decline, while not as steep as expected, could complicate the Bank of Japan's plans to raise interest rates further. The decrease in gross domestic product was narrower than a median market estimate of a 2.5% fall. This followed a revised 2.3% expansion in the prior quarter, driven partly by strong exports boosted by accelerated shipments to the US amid prolonged tariff negotiations. Also, Washington formalized a trade agreement with Tokyo in September, implementing a baseline 15% tariff on nearly all Japanese imports. And shares in Japanese tourism and retail firms also fell sharply after China warned its citizens not to travel to Japan in a spat of comments by Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi about Taiwan. In morning trading, Japanese shares fell sharply, with cosmetic company Shiseido dropping 9% and Uniqlo losing more than 4%. Takaichi's remarks were made shortly after a cordial meeting with Xi Jinping at the APEC summit implied Japan could support Taiwan militarily if attacked. Now, last week, China and Japan recalled their ambassadors amid rising tensions, with Beijing warning its citizens against travel. Long-standing distrust, territorial disputes and military disagreements continue to strain their relations. Takaichi, who has previously visited Taiwan and advocated closer cooperation, also held a separate meeting with Taipei's representative at the summit. And moving on to Asian markets struggled on Monday amid worries the Federal Reserve may not cut rates and ongoing fears of a market bubble. Following a weak performance in Wall Street, Asian markets mostly declined, with risk-averse sentiment also affecting cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin, which peaked at $126,251 on October 6th, struggled amid market uncertainty. Major markets in Hong Kong, Shanghai, Sydney and Singapore fell, while Seoul, Manila and Taipei saw gains. Now, Tokyo dropped after reports showed Japan's economy contracted by 0.4% in the third quarter, with ongoing China-Japan tensions affecting tourism and retail sectors. And back home, the Indian equity market opened the week on a firm footing today, with benchmark indices edging higher despite muted global sentiment and the absence of major local cues. The BSE Sensex climbed 252 points at the opening bell, while the NSE Nifty rose 63 points. With an earnings season winding down, analysts say investors are likely to turn their attention to the upcoming India-US trade discussions, expected to serve as the next key market catalyst. Well, you're watching TT India Newshour. Time now for some sports news. Italy's Yannick Sinner retained his ATP finals title, battling past Spanish world number one Carlos Alcaraz 7-6, 7-5. Alcaraz earned the only break point in the first set, but Sinner held strong, won the tie break and later closed the match when Alcaraz failed to hold serve. Sinner's win in Turin earned him a record $5 million in prize money. Well, Portugal clinched the 9th World Cup berth by dominating Armenia 9-1 in Porto on Sunday, completing a perfect Group F qualifying campaign under coach Roberto Martinez. Bruno Fernandes and Joao Neves each scored hat-tricks to fuel the rout despite Cristiano Ronaldo's suspension, paving the way for his record 6th tournament appearance in 2026 across the United States, Canada and Mexico. The victory highlights the team's depth, blending veterans and younger talents like 20-year-olds Neves. An Indian archer, Kushal Dalal, wins the GT Open Indoor World Series title in men's compound category in Strassen, Luxembourg. Kushal clinched the gold medal after defeating former world number one Stephen Hansen of US in a rare double shoot-off. Earlier, Kushal reached the finals after beating world champion Nicolas Gerard of France in the semi-finals. India's Ganesh Mani Ratnam Thirumuru also secured bronze in the under-21 men's compound category. Now, the Indoor World Series also moves on to Taipei and the 4th Taipei Archery Open at the start of December. And India made a strong start at the Deaflympics, winning 4 medals on the very first day, 1 gold, 2 silver and 1 bronze. In the men's 10-meter air rifle event, Dhanush Srikanth won gold with a world record score of 252.2 points, while Mohammad Vania took silver. In the women 10-meter air rifle, Mahit Sandhu won silver after scoring 250.5 points, just behind Ukraine's Lykova Violeta. Komal Milind Wagmer added a bronze with 228.3 points. The stellar performances show India's growing strength in shooting at the Deaflympics. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world in the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.